E.W. Carswell is a retired newsman and a historian of the Florida Panhandle. We stopped by his home in Chipley to talk about one of the legislature's most colorful characters of all time. Lonnie Weeks, known variously as Colonel Weeks or Uncle Lonnie, represented the area in the legislature during the early part of this century.
Back in the days of a lot of oratory, he was a strong believer in oratory, and he practiced a lot. And I understand that he'd go out behind the family barn on the farm, get up on a stump and make a stump speech, an actual stump speech from the stump. And with cattle and maybe a few people, but mostly cattle as his audience. And so he started in that way and went on, and he aspired to have a political career. And started off, of all things, he started at the top. He ran for governor first. And I believe it was in 1894, perhaps, that he ran on the populist ticket. He was a populist at that time. And he was their nominee, and he ran against and was defeated by Governor Bloxham, I believe. And then he came back and ran for the state senate and got elected. Served in the state senate for a while, and he was the kind of man that made a lot of powerfully strong friends and some bitter enemies. There was no middle ground for Colonel Weeks. Several characters.
Some of those bitter enemies finally defeated Weeks when he ran for re-election, and they wanted to rub it in.
So a group in Chipley decided they would bury his political career. So they had a funeral procession, got a coffin, and carried it down the street, dug a hole on a vacant lot, and buried Colonel Weeks' political career. And Ike Whidden preached the funeral, and they covered it and put some bitter weeds on it and went away. The political career is over. Two years later, Colonel Weeks ran for county commissioners and got elected. He moved over to Bonifay. Bonifay at that time had a part of the city, although it had become the county seat of Holmes County, part of it, the southern part, was in Washington County. And Bonifay interest aspired to have some of that land in Washington County annexed to Holmes County to sort of give this town some elbow room. So they asked for some land, and the county commissioners considered approving it, and they argued and argued, and legend says, the record doesn't say that, but the legend says that one member of the board, and I'll call no names at the moment because I'm not sure, a member of the board says, heck, says, let's give them the darn land and get rid of old Colonel Weeks. He lived in the area, you know, in question. So they gave them 22 sections of land, nearly that, and so that's why Holmes County has a little bulge at the southern end today. They gave it to get rid of old Colonel Weeks.
Weeks eventually went back to the legislature again, this time as a representative from Holmes County. He was a furious debater. In 1927, he really got his teeth into the debate. He was arguing so furiously on the House floor that his dentures flew out of his mouth. And then there was the time his filibustering could not be stopped, until finally someone offered him a few pieces of laxative chewing gum.
When he was a member of the House of Representatives in the late 1920s or early 30s, somewhere along there, he introduced, I believe it was the 20s, he introduced a bill in the legislature to create a state, a new state, composed of the West Florida counties, the counties west of the Apalachicola River, and several of Southeast Alabama counties. Actually, he was a Southeast Alabama man himself. He came from Coffee County down here in the many years earlier and had many relatives up that way. So there were some meetings about it and some discussion and a lot of press coverage of the proposal, but nothing ever came of it because I don't know if he was really serious about it or not, or was just having some fun. Sometimes I think the colonel did a few things just to have fun.